So my name is Vasyl, and I work for First Circle. So what we do, we provide trade finance to SMEs, small and medium enterprises in the Philippines. So some of the speakers before already mentioned some of the most interesting topics about fintech, which is payments. There were also some mentions regarding, the availability of credit, in particular personal loans. Us of First Circle, what we do is work in one specific segment, which is small and medium enterprises, business loans, right? So if you look on the data, in general, Southeast Asia and in particular Philippines, there is the estimates for SME lending gap. It's around at least $10 billion US dollars, 500 million pesos, which is a massive amount, which is financing that SMEs in the Philippines right now are looking for, but they cannot get it. And the challenge they have is that the providers of finance, they do not give it to them, or they don't provide it to them at a cost that is feasible for them. So in our case, what we do is we take advantage of the growing online economy in order to give them an opportunity, right? We cannot be operating as a bank. Consequently, we don't have branches. We distribute everything completely online. The key to success here is that we use the social media and email data as well as cell phone data in order to be able to underwrite our customers. So the experience for the customer is very, very simple. They want to get financing, so they go on First Circle website, www.firstcircle.ph. They fill out the application form, and it's a complete. And after I will dive deep in that regarding how we get there. But it's a completely different experience to what people are used to here, right? I mean, me, for instance, when I was coming to the Philippines, as soon as I landed, you have to fill out a paper form. There are hundreds of paper forms that must be filled out, right? Many cases it's a compliance thing, right? But it's also a habit of where we are coming from, a path dependency, right? However, we never work with paper, because for us, paper it's something that prevents us from scale, right? In case of banks, the way for them to reach a customer usually it's to open a branch. Am I correct? However, if there are 6,000 islands in the Philippines, you cannot, from cost perspective, it's not possible to open 6,000 branches in each island so that people can reach, right? There must be a different way, and today the online world is transforming completely the experience. And at the same time, technology is what allows us to allow people to get the financing easily. Usually when people get a loan in the Philippines, they have to do 2 or 3 visits to the branch, which is to collect the money. Many times people don't trust the experience, and they even want the money in cash, which is very interesting. So how we got there? So I would like to do a quick overview of innovation process in itself in order to make people understand how First Circle does it, and maybe there are some interesting takeaways for your company, for your businesses. So the first step is the innovation idea of why innovate, right? Also the innovation dilemma on the one hand is that how to allow your team in order to try new things, to make mistakes, but on the other hand you need to keep a specific business direction. Second of all is how to believe in the innovation. Many people are skeptical about fintech. They just say, okay, just a small segment if you compare it to the big banks. Just look on the loan book or the payments. Well, in case of payments, they are gaining lots of volume. In case of alternative lending companies, they're still relatively small. And second, last and most importantly, to understand which is the ambition and how to communicate it. So knowing yourself, in our case, right, we had to sit down and understand which was what we wanted to offer to our customers, right? What matters to our customers, where we had to be better. We cannot be competing in terms of capillarity and in terms of physical presence with other institutions, because basically from cost perspective we cannot do that. But we just want to, for instance, however we want it to be accessible to anybody. Consequently, online, it's a window that makes it available to everybody. It has been mentioned before, but in case of mobile phones, more than 90% of the population here in the Philippines has a mobile phone. a SIM card. However, less than 30% of people have a bank account. Right? So this is the portal that opens the window for many people. On the other hand, there is a very, very important part, which is data analytics. I have experience with this from the past already, but there is a vast amount of data about us on the internet. Sometimes it's very scary because you look on the social media, email, messaging apps, Viber, WhatsApp, everything. If you put it all together, I don't think anybody in this room would give his phone or her phone to somebody and would allow it to take a look, right? Whereas the data is there, the amount of data is very, very large. But the interesting point is that some of this data, when allowed by the customer, can be used in order to show who are the right people in order to give credit to. Maybe a business doesn't have a track of sales of millions of pesos, right? Maybe they're not able to show, a declaration that their sales are increasing a lot. But what about looking at how many customers or how many likes do they have on Facebook? What about looking what are their online sales in a portal like Lazada? If they go to a bank today, or somebody else, nobody would care, right? They say like, no, listen, these are my criteria. Why would I care? However, if you think about it and you take a step back, is a business which is gaining traction and is gaining sales online, is it a growing business? Is it a business which is going to be a big business in 10 years' time? I think the answer is very obvious to everybody. Another approach for us was to have a very, very dedicated customer success team. What this means is that people, when we did some client interviews and we tried to bring customers on site every 1 or 2 months, which was the experience. Because many times, I'm pretty sure in other contexts people experience this, you just feel that you're not only in financing, in other contexts, the company you're dealing with doesn't care about you. You just want more customer. They don't even know your name. In our case, what we wanted to do is to provide a completely different customer experience. When on the one hand it's technology driven, but on the other hand we really understand what are the customer needs. And this is what we do for now. And last but not least, we wanted to make this experience long-lasting. In other words, it's not about getting one or two transaction finance. It's about supporting somebody across their way. Most of SMEs existing on the Philippines are more than 5 years old. There are many businesses that are appearing today. However, there is, and especially in the local context, I discovered this myself as a foreigner, the society here, it's a very, very driven by relationships, right? So we had this challenge of how to combine technology and relationship. We have people who deal with our customers, in order to make it a pleasant experience for them, right? Because many times we just don't want to be talking to a computer, to a machine, but rather to have a different experience. So next one would be the belief, right? Many times people are like skeptical. Is it possible? Is it possible to do this in the Philippines? Because there are fintech companies that are successful in the United States. There are successful companies in Europe, some other emerging markets. In case of Philippines, in fairness, it has one of the best demographics of not only the world, but inside Southeast Asia. The average age here, it's like one of the lowest in the world. The economic growth, it was very solid, it has been very solid, and it is expected to continue like this. The government is doing a big effort in order to reduce the deficit. The central bank is also creating the right regulation in order to promote economic growth. And the belief here in innovation, is it possible, right? Because you say, why all this growth cannot be driven by other financing institutions, the traditional financing methods? And the interesting part about FinTech is that FinTech structurally is much much more competitive than traditional lenders. Why? Because I mean, if you're a bank today, for instance, and you have 500 branches, in 50 years' time, unless you close them down, you'll still need to be paying for that OPEX. In case of a fintech company or any other like technology company, your cost structure is very, very different, right? There is a massive investment for development. There are very big teams of engineers. However, if you think about the world in 10 or 15 years' time, right? I mean, I'll tell you my experience. I lived in Spain. I've been to my branch only once in the last 4 years. And I mean, I was living there before, not because I'm now in the Philippines. But I don't want to see people in the bank. I don't care. I just came once, I signed the paper, this is compliance required, but I never came back to the branch. And the interesting thing that this bank, which is kind of technology bank in Spain, they have like probably 20 branches across the entire country. And they're one of the top performing ones because they can offer the best fees to everybody else. Well, you can see the largest banks there, they have massive problems, they have layoffs, because basically from cost perspective, they cannot compete against like smaller players. So, as to recap a little bit, not to get lost at the interest, we have there the first step, which is you know yourself, you know your customer, where you can provide value. It makes sense from unit economics, cost structure. The underwriting methods are costly, time-consuming. In case of fintech company or SME lending company, we can use methods which are just much faster. Completely, we can provide a response in less than 24 hours. The time can be reduced even further because as soon as the data is online, it's fully automated, and your distribution channels are like the maintenance cost. It becomes much lower if you think about it in the long term. And last but not least, once you know yourself, once you have this belief, this direction, what is very important is, and it was very important for us to to understand what is the purpose. I mean, first you say, okay, we want to be the main SME, digital SME lender across Southeast Asia, right? There are many other success stories across the world. You have Market Invoice, Zopa in the UK, Funding Circle, Cabbage, many companies across the world that have been successful in this. However, in fairness, we realize that this is quite a poor ambition, if you think about it, because you just try to replicate. But what really matters is the metrics in themselves in order to be able to track it day to day, and the value you provide to the customers, right? So by not using paper, we have saved to the customers more than 15,000 forms, right? They didn't have to fill out paper. So I mean, besides the environmental effect, which is not the most relevant, but it makes a very big difference. More than 22,000 hours of no branch site visits or waiting time. Because I've been to banks here a couple of times. It's not only like the time that you need to go there. Usually there is quite a long time to wait, right? However, if you just can go online right now and fill out the application, right? It's not that you're going to go to the bank right now and wait for half an hour, best case scenario. Okay, lunchtime is going to be like 1 hour wait for sure. I mean, we have, I cannot reveal this data, but we have provided a magnitude of hundreds of millions of pesos to SMEs already in order to finance their transactions, right? And I think the best KPI of success in any case is the customer, right? It's not about just a metric or just, we want to be the largest, whatever. I think it's the experience of people, because if whatever you do, in our case, we are SME lending platform, you don't provide value to the customer, it's like, it doesn't make sense. In this case, we have testimonies of people who say, okay, you have been able to help me to bridge the gap between customer down payment and supplier payment, right? And like this, a business can grow more. They can start exporting. Reducing the hassle for people, just making the process easier. SME owners, they have such a stressful life, right? I mean, they're not called startups, but I mean, startups appeared probably the last 15, 20, 30 years ago, but SMEs exist for hundreds of years, right? They're kind of startups also, right? They're small companies, in many cases, they're large companies, without being corporations. And the point is that they also have they work long hours. They just don't want to spend time on things that doesn't add value, right? They have their own customers, right? Starting with the small sari store here in the Philippines, think about it, right? How they provide value is by having better selection of products, by having better prices, but not by thinking, how can I get the cash in order to buy the inventory? Last but not least, it's an example of one customer that also an e-commerce merchant. For them, it was just the right experience because they already have this easy access to selling online. They have one extra channel, and once you're online, you're selling online, but you do everything else online because the world is. The physical world will remain, obviously, right? We're all here in this room, but the world is moving towards online. So as soon as the first things appears, which is most e-commerce, usually the second wave which comes is the fintech. So with this, I'll finish my presentation. Thank you very much, everybody.